good afternoon, and welcome to episode 2 of the Mad Knitting Podcast. I did decide to come back, so thank you for joining me again, if you joined me the first time, and welcome. My name is Susan, and I come to you from the ancestral home of the Ho-Chunk people, now known as Madison, Wisconsin. You can find me on Instagram as madtown_mama. If you are a Ravelry user, you can find me as madtownmama without the underscore. I wanted to talk about a couple of things before I get into the knitting. The first is regarding accessibility. The very first episode I put up, I unfortunately did not put on the setting for closed captions. So unfortunately, that is not available on the first episode. It took me like 4 tries to upload that video, and I didn't realize until after I had published it that closed captioning is something that's only available as a setting that you have to do before you publish, and I couldn't fix it once it was up. So I'm very sorry about that. Moving forward, I will make sure that is available on all the videos that I post. Secondly, I am a Ravelry user, but I do understand that there are many people who cannot use the site because it triggers migraines and other neuro issues. So I will, whenever I can, provide, if I mention something like a pattern, I will make sure to provide links to other websites if those are available, and anything that is a Ravelry link, I'll make sure it's labeled very clearly so you don't accidentally click on it, because I certainly wouldn't want anyone to experience a medical issue just from clicking a link in the description box. The other topic I wanted to chat about just briefly has really nothing to do with knitting. I know that a lot of people who do crafting podcasts or knitting podcasts like to stay away from politics and current events. That is not me. I am a political person. I care deeply about a lot of things that are going on in the world, and I think it's important to face them and not to try to avoid them or shut them out. It is a lot of work, I think, to do that without getting too cynical or too bogged down in how difficult these issues are. But I also personally don't avoid them because like I said, I think it's really important to confront them. And I've been thinking about that a lot today. Today is November 3rd. We did not actually have a local election here yesterday, but there were a lot of other elections around the country, including the Virginia governor's race. I have family and friends in Virginia, so I was watching that a little bit last night, and it was tough to see someone win who basically won by spreading lies and disinformation. That is why I think it's important for us to be engaged and not just avoid the hard stuff, because if you try to stay away from it, then you end up with, honestly, with some real turkeys in office. I live in Wisconsin, and we had a pretty boneheaded governor for 2 full terms, and that was frustrating, and he did an incredible amount of damage that, you know, we haven't recovered from, and we may never recover from. So I wanted to say that. The other thing I wanted to say was that a big headline in the news late last week was as the negotiations are ongoing in Congress for this infrastructure and social infrastructure bill, as I guess the way you would put it, there was a big headline, it was either last Thursday or Friday, that paid family leave, 4 weeks of paid family leave was taken out of that bill. And it just, when I saw that, I just spent the whole day feeling so angry and defeated and discouraged. 4 weeks is not, even if they had kept 4 weeks in, that is not long enough. There are different reasons that people take family leave. I personally have 2 children, so that I got pregnant with them and gave birth to them, so I had to physically recover from that, along with having a new baby to care for. And I can tell you, I didn't get paid leave. I was actually a graduate student at the time, but I didn't get paid leave. But even if I had, 4 weeks would not have been nearly enough. It's been pointed out in many places that daycare centers, childcare centers, the youngest they will take children most of the time is 6 weeks. So clearly the people making up these policies that aren't even adequate to begin with and then getting rid of them are really out of touch with what people need. And it just makes me really upset and frustrated that we tend to point fingers at each other and blame each other for the individual choices that people, especially mothers, are making, rather than getting together and really advocating for what everybody needs. So that's all I'm going to say about that, because I could go on for a while, and I have a feeling if you're watching, you didn't come here to watch for that. You came here to watch for the knitting. So I'm going to get into the knitting. I have one finished object to show you, another one to talk about, a couple of works in progress, and then I thought that every once in a while, maybe not every episode, but every once in a while I would do like a yarn appreciation or spotlight on a small business or small dyer or local business that I really wanted to talk about. So I'm going to do that today. I want to start with finished objects. The first one I can't show you in the video, but I will get a picture in here. The mittens that I showed you last time, the purple ones that had like the mohair and sock yarn held together, those were finished and sent off. That was a birthday present for my sister-in-law. Her birthday is today. So fortunately, I did get them finished and sent them off, and they arrived in time. And I'm pawing around here for the yarn because I wanted to show you the yarn again. I used, and I have a lot left because mittens don't really take much, but I used, is this gonna focus? I don't know. This is Artistic Lily. She's an independent dyer, I think based in Illinois. Anyway, this is sock yarn and this is mohair silk, and I held them together and just did a very simple pair of mittens, the world's simplest mittens by Tin Can Knits. And they turned out really warm and soft and fuzzy, so I hope she likes them. I hope they don't make her itch. I know mohair makes some people itch. The second finished object I have to show you is getting pulled out of the basket now. This is also a work in progress that I showed you last time. This is the Pixie Dust cardigan by Danny Sunshine. It is for, is this gonna focus? It is for my 3-year-old niece. So my sister-in-law, whose birthday is today, she and my brother have 2 daughters. The younger one is 3, and I finished this cardigan for her. I had to go out yesterday and get buttons because I didn't have enough of anything that matched. They're just from like a big box store. What do I say about this? I used Knit Picks Provincial Tweed in the color Jam, just over a skein. One whole skein lasted the entire body. And then I had to get into the second skein to do the sleeves, but obviously that didn't take very much. So the tweed is a really kind of a busy yarn. So you can see there's like colors marled together and different color tweed in there. So I'm really glad that I had a pattern with not very much going on. There's just this little eyelet detail down the yoke. So that's done. That'll get sent off at some point with a sweater for her big sister. So those are the two finished objects that I finished recently. I also thought that I would talk about the sweater that I'm wearing. This is something that I finished early in 2020. It was before the pandemic started, because I remember like wearing it like in public a couple of times. This is called the Bravura pullover. It is by Beatrice Darren Palin, also known as Thread and Ladle. That is her Instagram handle, and also the name of her website. And it's got this, it's top down, and it's got this all over color work pattern. I'm gonna stand up so you can see. And I used a whole bunch of different colors of yarn that I had left over from other projects. It's worsted weight, so I think it's mostly Cascade 220. There's probably some Knit Picks Wool of the Andes in here. And if you look really close, you can see where I would like run out of one color and then have to switch to another. And there's so many colors in it that I think that worked out really well. The one issue with it is that when I finished it, I originally had long sleeves that went all the way down to my wrists. And I did wear it like that several times, but the sleeves didn't get narrow enough as they came down to my wrists, and so it was like kind of baggy down here, and it always bugged me wearing it. I really cannot stand to have like excess fabric, especially around my hands and my wrists and my arms. It's a tactile thing. I just don't like it. And it would bug me every time I wore it. So for a while I thought, oh, maybe I should like rip out the knitting and redo the sleeve so it's narrower, but I just didn't feel like doing that, especially since it's color work. Doing color work on double points on sleeves just was not appealing again. And then it occurred to me, you know what? Maybe I should just cut off the sleeves and make them shorter. It can't hurt to try it. So I did that. I cut off, about here, unraveled the yarn, and then reknit with ribbing. So now they're about elbow length. And the amazing thing is that now I'm totally sold on short sleeve wool sweaters. I never thought it made sense before. I've lived in Wisconsin for more than 20 years, and I'm not sure how I never tried this before, but I never kind of understood the point. If you're gonna wear wool, I figured you'd want short sleeves, but I'm wrong. I'm sold. I'm nice and warm in this without getting overheated. The fit is much more comfortable to me. And the bonus is that where I cut off these cuffs, here, I'll try one on. You can see how like baggy it was. Ugh, just annoying. They're baggy enough that they actually fit over the bottom part of my legs. And so I may, I'll have to like unpick a little bit here, but I could add some ribbing and then I'll have leg warmers, which I've never actually worn leg warmers before, but it gets cold, so they might be handy to have around, even if they are kind of dorky. But in case you haven't figured out by now, I'm kind of a mega dork, so I don't know why that would matter. That is it for like finished objects until we get to the yarn appreciation part. But that's what I have to show. Next time, hopefully I'll have a couple of bigger projects to show. So what I'm gonna do now is move on to works in progress. And I only have two. One of them is a biggie. So I'm gonna start with a smaller one. I showed you this last time. It's a sock. It's the same sock. I still haven't finished the first one, but it's gotten longer. I think I was probably about down to here last time, and I've added a few stripes. The reason this is going so slowly is One, because I've been distracted by the other project, but also because I need to add the afterthought heel. You can see that I have, oh, focus please, there, that I have waste yarn here for the heel, and I need to get that in so that I can make sure the length is accurate for the foot. I believe I mentioned last time that these socks are going to be for my daughter, whose foot is bigger than mine, but I can always use my own foot to get a rough idea of how long it needs to be, but I really need that heel in there first. So, and that'll just take a little more fiddling and thinking. So the pattern basically that I'm using is the Smooth Operator Socks by Susan B. Anderson, and she has really thorough instructions in there for the afterthought heel with photos and everything. So I highly recommend that pattern, especially if you're a beginning sock knitter. So that's the first work in progress. The second one, y'all, this is massive. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen some progress shots in my stories, possibly. I did mention that I was planning to start this the last episode. This is the Unbearable Hoodie by Les Garçons, and it is for my little brother. My little brother is 6'3", so he's not a small dude. He's not especially broad, but he's still like way over 6 feet tall. So I am making, my gauge is slightly off. I think my stitches are a little bit bigger than what the pattern calls for, so I went one size, I did a little math, and I went one size down for the cast on numbers and stuff, and I think it's gonna come out, well, it's hard to tell because it's a little scrunched up on the needles, but I think it'll come out to be about the right size. I started this on Friday night, and because color work is like potato chip knitting, I actually got through the end of the color work yesterday. Yesterday was Tuesday, so I spent Friday, Saturday, like 5 days on all of this. So I love this pattern. It's really fun, really playful. I mentioned last time that I made the kid version for his older daughter. So I don't know if she can still wear it, but her little sister could. And there's just something I find very amusing about sort of matching bear sweaters for my brother and one of his girls. I did want to say this is not a good sweater for a beginner. There are a couple of reasons for that, and it has to do with the color work. So first of all, you can see that there are long stretches of the same color, which means that there are these really long floats in the back. I mean, sometimes it's like 15 stitches. And whenever you do that, you have to catch the contrasting yarn in the back. Otherwise, you'll end up with these really big loops. It'll pull in. You can tell that it's puckered a little bit. I am not worried about it looking funky once it's blocked because I've done color work a lot before and I know that it usually smooths out really nicely. Plus, I always go up one needle size when I do this so that it won't pull in too much compared to the plain stockinette portion. So that is one challenge. The other thing is that there are several rounds that have 3 colors, which is not my favorite thing. It really slows you down and it's just awkward. When I've got 2 colors, I can hold one in my right hand and one in my left hand, but when I've got 3, obviously I don't have a third hand to work with and they get tangled really easily and it's kind of slow going and annoying, but it's so cute. I mean, look at the bears are wearing little hats and there are flowers with a contrasting center color. So I'm pretty excited about how this is gonna look. I am using, I don't know that I have the tag handy. Yeah, I do. So for the dark charcoal and the orange, I am using Valley Yarns Northampton. It's a good basic wool. Come on, please focus. It's like bouncing around trying to focus. There we go. Northampton Valley Yarns. It's equivalent to Knit Picks Wool of the Andes or Cascade 220, just a basic wool. And I have quite a lot of that because it's going to have a very long torso and very long arms. So there's a dark charcoal for the main color, heathery orange for the hood and the flowers, and then I just had leftover light gray that I used for the rest. So that is coming right along. For the socks, I think I forgot to mention that's Knit Picks Felici, which is a self-striping sock yarn. Okay, those are actually my only 2 works in progress. I'm not going to count those cuffs from this sweater because those aren't in progress. I just set them aside in case I decide to do it. And I don't have other projects planned at the moment. I always have ideas swirling in my head, but this sweater has like taken up all of my knitting bandwidth. So that's what I'm working on now. I just got past the sleeve split this morning, so I'm good to go for miles and miles of stockinette for a while. So for the last portion of today's episode, I thought that I would mention, do like a yarn appreciation feature. So today I'm going to talk about Barrett Wool Company. I don't think they are unknown in the knitting universe. I think a lot of you are probably fans of Susan B. Anderson. She actually lives in the same city as me, and I have met her twice. Once was a really long time ago when my daughter was a baby. She was doing a trunk show at a local shop. And several years ago, I actually took my mom to a knitting retreat in Maine where she was attending. She wasn't even teaching, she was just attending. So I actually got to chat with her a little bit there. She's a really, really lovely person, incredibly creative and prolific. If you are a fan of toy patterns, then I'm sure you know who she is and have seen those. A few years ago, she started a yarn company with one of her sons called Barrett Wool Co. It's all North American sourced yarn. None of it is superwash treated. And I've made several projects out of it. So I thought I would just share those here. So I'll start with home. She has, her 2 main lines are like the Wisconsin worsted. Is that what it's called? Wisconsin woolen, something like that. That's like Wisconsin made. And then she just has like the home line, which is not necessarily from Wisconsin. It's just North American. So I'll start with the home line. There's a worsted and a fingering weight. In the worsted, the first thing I made was this hat, which is, oh shoot, I forgot to look up the name of this hat. The designer is Thea Coleman, and I was a test knitter. Agave. It's Agave. It's the Agave hat. Thea Coleman is the designer. If you know Thea's designs, you know she is an absolute wizard with cables. And I just had so much fun making this. It took less than a skein. I used size 8 needles. It used to have a pom-pom, but I think that fell off at some point. And it's just warm and soft and lovely, and it's in my favorite color ever, which is this bright red. So that's the first project out of that. This is really great sweater yarn too. So I'm going to show you. This is a sweater that I made for my daughter. And if she ever grows out of it, I'm going to steal it from her because it's so beautiful. This is the Arboreal Sweater by Jennifer Steinbeck. And for this main part, this dark charcoal color, I used the home worsted again. For the color work, I just had a bunch of leftover red and orange and yellow from other projects. Some of that same stuff may have gone into the sweater that I'm wearing actually. So these contrast colors aren't the Barrett Wool Company, but the main is. And she loves this sweater. She wears it all the time. I may pop in a picture I took of her wearing it on a snowy day last winter because it's so cute on her. So that is the home worsted. There's a fingering weight version of the same thing. So a project that I made out of the home fingering are these mittens. These were also for my daughter. They have little cats and these elaborate snowflake patterns. And then there's a contrasting snowflake pattern on the hand and then on the thumb as well. These were a labor of love, let me tell you. So is this showing up? This is a Norwegian pattern I found in a book, and I think I used size 0 needles because the gauge was so small. I was like trying to get the stitches small enough, and it still wasn't quite as small as I needed. So the mittens are a little bit wide. I mean, you can see there's room in there, and they're a little bit short. And by now these are actually a little bit small for her. Like the thumb, like I really have to shove my hand in. And if you take a close look, you can see that these have felted from being out in the snow. These have been well used and well loved, and I think there's been just a little bit of dye transfer, which is no fault of the yarn. I think it's honestly from use. But the yarn is an absolute delight to work with, and I had so much fun making these mittens. They're lovely. I want to make more, maybe a gauge that is a little bit less like chainmail, because these are like waterproof practically. Another yarn that you can get from Barrett Wool Company, or that you used to be able to get, she had a special run of DK weight, and this is like, is this woolen spun? I'm not even sure. I haven't knit with it yet, but it was only available in sweater kits for a pattern that I wasn't really wild about it, but I really loved the colors that were available. So I ordered 2 kits in like kind of a bigger size so that I would have enough yarn for at least like 3 sweaters. I'm kind of a yarn pig. And one of the colors that I got plenty of was this dark charcoal gray. I sort of feel like there's a charcoal gray theme going on here between the sweater for my daughter, the sweater for my brother, and then this one. This isn't as dark as those, it's more of a steel gray. But my plan is to make an arboreal for myself with a different contrast color. So it's not exactly like hers, but kind of similar. So I have swatched with this, and it's ready to go as soon as I have time to cast it on. But we'll see. I'm not exactly sure when I'll get to it. The other sort of main line of yarn, she's got the home worsted, and then she has the Wisconsin woolen spun. And I wanted to show a sweater I made out of the worsted weight of the woolen spun. It is this. This is another Theo Coleman design. It is called Seelbach, and this is one of my favorite sweaters. It fits really well. It's really warm, and I feel like this yarn wears even a little better than the home, because I've worn this quite a lot. I finished it about 2.5 years ago, and it's been washed a few times, and you can see that it's like not pilled. Even at the cuffs, it's just in really good shape. So I am just thrilled to pieces with this one. This was technically a test knit for Thea, although I finished it so late that I thought after that she was probably gonna fire me as a test knitter. But she didn't. So thank you, Thea. I don't know if she's watching, but yeah. So the things that I like about Barrett Wool Company are many. I like that it's North American sourced, that a lot of it is Wisconsin sourced. I like that it's a family business. She's just a really creative, special person, and has done everything she can to keep her business close to home and highlight other designers, and I just really appreciate that. I also like that they don't sell any superwash yarn. Now, I've used superwash yarn. I use it a lot of times, especially for kid things and for gifts, but superwash, the treatment they use to make yarn washable is actually pretty bad for the environment. So the more you can use non-treated wool, the less of a environmental footprint you're gonna have. Plus, I just think it wears better. So I like it both for the environmental reasons and just I like how it feels. I like how it knits. I think it's just my preference for a lot of different reasons. I can see that I'm almost at 35 minutes, so I will just wrap up quick for today. The other regular segment I was going to have is what I'm reading, and that will not take very long because I'm still reading The Grapes of Wrath. I have not finished it. I'm maybe halfway through. Maybe I'll share more when I'm done with it, once I actually get to the end and remember what happens or read what I'm supposed to know at the end of the book. And the other thing I wanted to show was a book that I actually bought a copy of this for my sister-in-law. This was part of her birthday present. It's this book called Lawns into Meadows. This is a library copy. It was just published last year, I believe. It's by someone named Orrin Wormser. Let me hold this a little closer. And he is a landscape architect who specializes, surprise, surprise, in converting lawn areas into meadows using like native plants, natural, well, lawns or grass is a plant, but like, what am I trying to say? Using plants that really belong in the ecosystem and are much more restorative. That's the word I'm looking for, restorative and regenerative. So it's a goal of mine to have less lawn and more garden. I already have a pretty big garden and I have a bunch of wildflowers in my front yard, but I would eventually like to convert the entire front yard into a meadow and maybe more of the backyard. What I have now, the birds and the buzzing insects and small creatures, really love it. Another huge benefit, and I wish this was more well known about meadows and grasslands in general, is that if they are in the proper locations and managed right, they can sequester a lot more carbon than even trees. So that's a good alternative to forests and places where trees are maybe not the best choice for whatever reason. A good prairie or grassland or meadow is just as valuable for preventing erosion and sequestering carbon. So anyway, this book offers a lot of the reasons why you should do it and a lot of practical advice for how to do it, how to pick plants, how to assess the area that you're working with for, things like soil quality and water runoff and all that stuff. So I got a library copy to read, and if I like it well enough, I might purchase one because I think it's always good to have good reference books on hand. Okay. I really want to try to keep these at 30 minutes or less, and I've already gone over. So I'm going to stop there for now. Thanks again for watching. I will make sure comments are turned on today. The comment thing was the other thing that I didn't get right on the settings for the first episode. So I asked you to leave a comment, and then I failed to make that possible for you. So I hope everybody is having a good week, and I think there will be an episode 3. So I will see you next time. Bye-bye.